You're listening to Rein It In with Ash and Josh.
Joe, I promise we are usually more professional than this.
Again, he is lying.
Yeah, I am. I'm trying my best.
Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay.
I think I'm ready. We'll find out.
Welcome back to the Rein It In podcast with your hosts, myself, Josh, and Ash.
Hello.
Today we have a special guest joining us, Joe Bright. Joe is a UKCC accredited dressage rider and trainer based in Kent, with a range of services like dressage training, rider training, horse sales, and more. Get ready to dive into the world of dressage with our friendly and knowledgeable guest, Joe Bright. Let's rein it in.
Oh, you added like a little bit. Let's rein it in.
Did you like that bit?
You chat GPT'd that, didn't you?
No, I didn't. That was me.
Did you actually
Yeah, I
write
wrote
that?
that, yeah.
Really impressed, mate.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I love that.
Hey, Joe. Thanks for
that.
coming on. It could have been a lot nicer if I'd written it. I would have taken a lot more time to that. But I think Josh did a really good job there.
Perfect.
Yeah, thanks for coming down, buddy.
So, Joe, where I would like to start is, what was your journey like into horses?
So my journey into horses, I believe, starts when I was 4, 5, and I had hearing and communication problems. So I couldn't go to football to see like the Gills play because I couldn't stand the noise at all. So my brother would go with my dad to see football, and my mum thought, it would be a way of her getting back into riding because she had ridden like as a teenager. So we went off riding, and with communication being quite difficult, horses just became like a very easy, calming place to be. And for me, horses have always seemed to understand me, and communication's never been an issue. So yeah, that's really how it started. And then it built from there.
So what age was it roughly that your mum sort of took you back or got you into riding and went down that route?
So that was from about 4 or 5 probably.
Wow, so young.
Yeah, young. But literally I'd just go to a local riding school, go on a 20-minute walk hack, and that would be like enough. By the time you've like seen the horse finish, the horse has been finished getting ready and everything like that, you still ended up with a good amount of time with the horses. And then that slowly built, and I stayed in riding schools until I was probably 11. And then I worked at a horse rescue for like 9 hours every Saturday and 9 hours every Sunday. And then, when I was 11 or 12, my parents were like, okay, we can get you a horse. And I think I managed to, I think that pony that we had, because I was still like 5'5" or something, so I could have a pony at that time. And that pony we paid £600 for, and she was an old show jumping pony that the owners were saying, she's meant to be 20, but we think she's a bit older. But she'd jump around Hickstead and stuff. Like, as you guys know, there are lots of different competitions at Hickstead. And then, she was just a great pony to learn on, had never been hacked out. So just used to gallop off with me or just start bucking as soon as she went on the grass.
You guys are learn quick.
So I developed my seat quite well. I developed because she was so good with the show jumping, and developed like a soft hand going into a fence and everything like that, where she wouldn't rush. And so I had a school mistress in one way, and then in another way I had a pony that taught me how to sit and not fall off.
So it was the best of both worlds, really?
Best of both worlds, yeah.
What was your journey through riding school like?
So in riding schools, I had some amazing instructors that were animated and really, really lovely towards me. Funnily enough, one of my first riding instructors, I go to her place now to teach one of her clients every week, and she's one of the people that still gets away with calling me Jojo because
That's what I'm going to title this episode.
Yeah.
Jojo.
Jojo, because she still sees me as a 5-year-old. I couldn't really speak, and so she loves the fact she's been able to follow the journey, and now I can teach her clients. We make a good team like that.
Wow, that's incredible. So obviously we spoke about riding school is coming up, then you got your first pony. How did that then progress into now becoming a dressage rider?
Okay, so through my teenage years, I always had quite tricky, complicated horses that because that's what I could afford. And so if someone had given up on a horse, then I'd take the horse on, and did quite a lot of eventing through Pony Club, because for me the Pony Club was an amazing organisation because it was a very good charity in the way that everything was subsidised. So like you could event British eventing tracks for like a third of the money. So that was an amazing education through the Pony Club. And I despised dressage. It was like watching paint dry. It was so boring, and didn't understand it. And then I was getting double clears eventing and still not doing very well because the dressage was appalling. One writer that I still speak to nearly got out the car at Chilham because they thought I was going to jump the car with the horse because we were quite out of control.
Wow.
But again, taking on horses that adults didn't want anymore, you kind of ended up in those situations sometimes. And then I didn't want to stay on at my school at 16. I wanted to leave and just do something, work with horses. And as a halfway house, my mum took me to Plumpton College for an interview, and I was ranting on about, by that time, my love for dressage, this thing that I had no chance of doing. Like, I was so useless at it, but had become obsessed by trying to make my dressage better for the eventing. And the course director there said, look, you're going to be really bored here. I think you need to go somewhere and like be in a proper yard. So he gave me Dane Rawlins' email address, and I became an apprentice at Dane's. So I went for a job interview in February whilst I was still at school, and Dane said, yeah, you've got the job, just like do your GCSEs and then there'll be a place for you. So I had 10 days off after I finished my GCSEs, got very drunk on a beach and woke up somewhere.
Which you do, yeah. Which you do.
Woke up somewhere I didn't really know, which was a friend's house. It was all fine. And then that was my summer holidays. And then I started working 6 days a week.
For the one and only Dane Rawlins.
For Dane.
Good old Dane. Love Dane Rawlins.
But bless him. I mean, we used to call him Daddy Dane because
Funny enough, so did we.
because he was very sweet, really, and used to take us to the cinema
in his own little way, yeah.
In his own little way, and for me, it was a really good start, a really good education. Got to ride amazing horses that I think a lot of yards wouldn't have let someone that had just been doing some eventing on. So like Lady Harris had a horse that had done the World Equestrian Games, and I got to warm that horse up every day, and opportunities like that, like you never forget. And
yeah, stay with you.
Yeah, I find it quite sad if people do forget that because they want to move on and I don't know, maybe go for the fancier names, and maybe it doesn't fit in everyone's journey, like saying everyone they worked for, but I'm really proud that I did my time at Danes.
Yeah, would you say that was one of the most pivotal moments in your career?
Yeah, I'd say it was where I knew, okay, this is interesting. The horses are quirkier. They're We might not be leaving the ground intentionally, but yeah, the horses have some fire in their belly for dressage. It was the first time I'd been riding really well-bred horses designed for the job. So yeah, it really sparked my interest.
Can you remember the first time that you sat on what we would say is a proper dressage horse and made you fall in love with dressage? Because for people that don't ride, it's very difficult to explain what that feeling is.
Yeah, so I remember the first time riding at Danes and thinking where I'd evented and had done my Pony Club B test, which is you have to like trot without stirrups, and I was like in a bad Steuben like VSD saddle. And so I was like, oh, I can't do sitting trot. I can't do this, can't do that. And then I remember this horse I was riding at Danes and just went sitting and I was like, oh, it's really not that difficult, because the horses were soft over the back. They were working properly. They were up through their backs. And suddenly I was like, oh, this is amazing. This feeling of just floating along and the impulsion and the activity without the speed going forward. So yeah, that was my first memory of that.
Wow. So what followed after Danes?
After Danes, then I came back home to Kent, and I managed David Rumsey's yard for about 3 years, and rode 10 horses a day, mucked out probably 12, 13, varied how many we had in. But yeah, I worked and really applied myself and learnt a lot from David in terms of business, in terms of selling horses. I thought he was really good in terms of how he was with the clients, be a good salesman, and really enjoyed my time there.
You're riding at that point a lot of horses and mucking out. What sort of physical effects does that take on your body?
So any time I would book a massage or something, I remember the massage therapist going, "What, you're 20? You're not going to be able to walk by the time you're 30 if you carry on like this."
Yeah.
Just because, like, you don't look after yourself at that age. You're skinny, you have abs, so you don't think you need to go to the gym.
You see the abs and go, yeah, I'm in shape.
Yeah. And it's not, you don't think, oh, that's because I'm growing and
yeah, of course,
everything's going that way. So for me, like, there wasn't strength and conditioning training at that stage. There was uneven sweeping, everything like that. But I mean, I lasted, and yeah, I think what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Absolutely. It's almost like a bit of a rite of passage, I assume. Yeah,
and I would hate to have not done it. I feel with the girls that work for me now, I feel very lucky. But I think they also like the fact that if I'm telling them how to do something, it's because that is how I do it. And I'm also a very good groom. I can apply myself to do exactly what I want them to do. And that can be platting up, that can be mucking out a stable in less than 10 minutes and still not leaving any shit anywhere. So I feel very comfortable helping manage my yard because of my experience in that. I think I would feel differently about telling people how I want things done if I'd never done it myself.
And I think you gain more respect from your staff because they also go, he's not asking me to do something that he wouldn't do himself or hasn't done himself. And I think straight away that creates a team bond, which is on a yard you really, really do need. So from David's, you then went independent by yourself. Is that right?
Yeah, we had done quite well in the last year I was at David's. We had sold a lot of horses, and it was a good team effort. And then I thought, I'd really like to do this for myself. And my freelance, because when you're 20, I do feel you should be able to work every single hour under the sun. And so my freelance business had been growing. David had given me a few horses to go out and ride because he didn't have time to go to the clients anymore. His business was going in a different direction. So, and some of those clients that I got at the age of 17, they're still with me now.
That just says so much about you as a person, though, that they're still with you now, though.
Yeah, but I love that longevity.
Yeah.
I love, I do this for communication and to help people with their horses. And that's a much bigger, we'll come on to that later, but that's a much bigger thing for me than competing and getting the results. In that way, I think for me, competing is like my nice bit of junk happiness. But my fulfillment comes from helping my horses, helping other people with their horses, and that longevity and that journey that you can have.
Why do you think that is, that you find so much joy in helping horses or people?
It's probably because I struggled. Like if we're having a therapy session,
You will go away here feeling fantastic.
because I struggled as a child with my communication, like I said, and
So that was hearing and speech.
yeah. So I think the hearing was quite dodgy. So I spoke like a flower pot man for a long time,
Right.
and I have an older brother.
Always
who
tough.
He's just the nicest guy. So
I completely U-turn on what I just said.
yeah, sorry.
Me being the older brother in
Yeah.
my situation, I just took a look back and went, okay, maybe I'm at fault there.
So he was my translator. So
Oh, amazing.
So I think he enabled me to speak like a flower pot man for so much longer.
Yeah.
So that was the hindrance. So yeah, I think when I see people now and training with their horses, I always look at them and go, okay, do you know what you're trying to say to your horse? Yes. Or do you know what you're actually saying to your horse? And all the time, there's never an issue in horses not wanting to do what you want them to do. There's an issue with how you're communicating it to them. Or you're communicating something that the horse isn't capable of yet, or isn't ever going to be capable of.
Is that something that created a bit of more of a unique and special bond between you and the horses, as they're sensory animals, and similar to a blind man's hearing is much more optimal than us of every sensory system? Did that give you almost a special advantage in that way in communicating with animals?
Yeah, but I also think I gave them the patience that I wanted people to give me, and I was very lucky. I had a lot of people that gave me a lot of patience when I couldn't communicate, and I will sit in a horse's stable until I think I understand what they're thinking, in terms of if there's an issue, how they're behaving, looking for signs. If a horse is pissed off in the stable but really happy when being ridden, like what's going wrong with the management? Could the horse have stomach ulcers? Anything like that. What I've learnt now is I've always looked for those signs, but I've never known what that meant. And now it's tying it all together. As you gain more experience, you start to realise what horses communicating in different ways could mean for them.
It's almost like a bit of a horse whisperer in certain aspects.
I mean, my mum used to do natural horsemanship, and I used to say she was boring the horse into submission. But I only say that as someone that feels that a lot of the natural horsemanship things is common sense if you wait for long enough to see how horses interact with themselves in the field. And yeah, I actually love all that stuff. now that I don't like falling off too much and have quite a busy business, I recommend that clients go to Jason Webb or Hamish, who used to work for him, to get the horses backed if they want the horse to come to me straight away afterwards, because I like how they introduce things to them.
How was that transition into a management role, especially with your communication? There's a lot more responsibility there and you're having to delegate more. Was that quite a natural transition at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I think yard manager in certain yards can be thrown around a little bit too much. And so I was definitely a manager of the horses, and
probably easier to deal with.
yeah, and making sure they were getting the right food and noticing if they were if they were losing weight or if they had lost condition. And then I don't think it was till much later on that I realised I was a manager or a leader of people, and that would be fast forwarding to doing the young riders Hickstead quadrille that Dane organised. And when we got to Windsor and we had Jenny Lauriston Clark, and it turned into the Balmoral quadrille because the Queen wanted, it was for the Queen's Jubilee, I think. And at that point just seemed to take control of the group of riders that I knew very well by then. And there needs to be a leader in situations, and I actually really then enjoyed that. And I was the bridge between Jenny and Dane and the group of riders I was with. And I enjoyed supporting people in terms of if their horse was rearing up or something, like calming the situation down. Yeah, and but that was much later on. I was probably 26, 27 at that point.
Right, so prior to that, you gained knowledge, you've gained experience in different yards, you're now by yourself. So what once was a hobby is now your profession. How was that change for you?
It was all consuming for a long time, and different things have been difficult about it along the way. And I always think with horses and the equestrian industry, you think, oh, this is okay. I've got this. I've got enough horses in training. I've sold one and it passed the vetting, and I'm teaching enough lessons. And then your business has to take a turn around another corner, and you have more horses in for sale, and that goes really well. And then so you follow that road for a while. And I found that's the hardest thing over the last 10 years of being adaptable and staying current and fulfilling my existing clients' needs, as well as making a business. So yeah, I think it's that change and adaptability that's been really difficult at times. I think what I also found difficult to begin with when I went on my own was riding for clients that their horses were their everything, and the pressure you could then put on yourself as a rider to deliver for those clients is actually even more pressure than they would put on you. And so again, I think I would have fast forwarded a lot of aggro if I had worked with a sports psychologist earlier on, things like that. But I do believe in time being great for learning lessons as well.
So you still work with a sports psychologist?
No, my PT is a counsellor.
Okay, that's brilliant.
Yeah, so bless him. I'm on the cheaper rate because I'm doing the PT sessions.
Perfect.
And I'm like, this would be more expensive if I was seeing you as a counsellor. He's amazing. So I have 2 PT sessions a week and talk about anything I need to whilst doing some deadlifts.
Amazing. It's almost like for fitness, it is almost the best way to stimulate how you're thinking. I mean, some of our best, well, we think best ideas came from the gym. But I think it's when you put yourself in that position where you exhaust yourself, everything seems calm.
I was thinking about this the other day, that the gym is a really good place to learn that failure is the best option. Because if you don't fail and you're lifting weights in the gym, you're never going to build muscle.
Yeah.
And once you start weightlifting, your aim is to build muscle. And I really struggled with that when I first started going to the gym. I was like, what, you mean it's better if I don't get to 12? But I really need to get to 12.
Yeah.
And 12 reps. And doing 4 sets of everything and going, okay, I need to get to that next stage of not being able to do this amount of weight. And I think that's really transferable to horses, and to learn to fail a bit quicker, and then be able to move on and not stay in something for so long. And I mean, you wouldn't stay on the sinking ship, would you?
Absolutely.
You'd swim.
Oh, yeah, well, you tried to.
Yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't last very long. Are there any other similarities from the gym and fitness that play a role in the equestrian world?
Similarities for me, I think the failure is a big one. Becoming more comfortable with it. I think a similarity for me between the fitness world and the equestrian world is I feel like I'm in my own bubble with both.
Right, okay, yeah.
And quite a way away from the politics. And if that's the fitness world, it's the politics of, are they taking steroids? What are they doing to look that good? And if it's the equestrian world, it's, have you gone to that dressage ball? Have you done this schmoozing event? And recently I've learnt to, I think my first 10 years of my career has been all consuming, and recently I've had to find that balance and have a life outside of the horses, because the equestrian world is quite tough, and also because things go wrong with horses. And if that's your everything, if that's your whole purpose in life, when that goes wrong, you can't cope. Whereas if that's a section of your life that is really important to you, you can still cope when that goes wrong, when you have other things to focus on.
You mentioned there that for the last 10 years it was consuming for you, and so that means it was your everything. When things went wrong, did it feel like your world had been almost torn apart with the horses then? Yes, but I think you can fight for quite a long time. You can have enough fight in you to go, no, it doesn't matter. You can go, I'm going to plow through this. The most frustrating thing for me with the horses, if horses have broken down or needed help, is the financial worries about, I'm so miserable if I don't think I can do the best for my horse. And I think that's where I've become slightly more balanced, going, actually the best, and that's experience as well. And sometimes the best for some horses is having a nice life hacking out, and it doesn't matter if they can't become a Grand Prix horse. So I think that's experience and balance.
Was there a pivotal moment that you can recall that you needed to find that balance?
I think I just limit myself to how many breakdowns I'm allowed a year. And if it exceeds that limit, something needs to change.
Yeah.
I guess in the last couple of years I've gone, this is going well. I'm happy with what I do. But there was no one big mountain that made me go, oh, okay, I need a life now. I need to find some friends. Because I have enjoyed the longevity I've had with clients. Clients have become friends. The way I see a friend is, could you pick up the phone at 3 a.m. and say, shit, I need some help? And that is why I'd say a lot of my clients are friends as well, because I believe they would do a lot for me and I would do a lot for them outside of the business relationship we have. That's quite tricky at times to navigate, obviously, because we need to also make a living, and small businesses aren't. It's more difficult to see people's value in a small business than I always think of people being able to go out to a restaurant and spend £500 because it's a celebration, or put their dog into kennels and it cost 40 quid a day, and then them need to negotiate with you because the training livery cost is £35 a day, and it's like, yeah, but you've just boarded your dog in a kennel for more money, and they definitely don't crap as much.
No. Well, what advice would you give to those listening that are at this moment thinking about making that transition into doing it for themselves to making a business out of it? Where were some of the downfalls that you look back on and go, I've really learned from that you could advise on others?
I'd say for people wanting to get into this, there are so many different ways to do it. And don't be ashamed if you're not taking the path that everyone else, you feel everyone else is taking, because you don't know other people's stories. I feel I've been really lucky because the equestrian world has expected nothing from me. I'm not from a dressage dynasty. There are lots of similarities, I feel, between Josh and I in terms of feeling a little bit like an outsider, and for different reasons as well. And in my days of going, oh, this isn't easy, this is really difficult, I could have looked at someone like Josh that was experiencing his own problems and gone, yeah, but he's got a yard in his back garden. Like, I've never had that. I have to pay £2,000 a month to have a yard. And but that's my point. Everyone else has their own struggles. You don't know about them. And there's so many different ways to combat them.
Yeah.
And on the other end of the spectrum, the privilege that people have, I don't think it makes it any easier for them. I think with that comes expectation. Matthias Rath, I think, is a really nice rider, but he got given a £12 million horse and it just never ever worked. And yeah, we would have all loved to ride Totalas, but how many people could have coped with that pressure?
Yeah.
And let's be honest, like, that was a whole team that changed. The more you know about horses, and especially at that top level, they have critical, like, vet management, farrier management. Everything is like no stone left unturned. So yeah, for people with privilege, I think it comes with its own issues. So it's made me not jealous of anyone in this sport. If someone does well, I'm really happy for them, whether their parents have bought them £1 million pony or if they've started from grassroots and worked their way up.
One of the things you were saying, you touched on regarding running your business, is having clients as friends, and they've helped you massively. Someone starting, there's a good potential that their first clients, word of mouth, are people they know that are friends. What boundaries have you put in place to navigate that relationship between client and friend? So it doesn't get too messy. As we know, business and friends and business and pleasures are very difficult waters.
So there have been boundaries that have built over the years, like contracts, and everyone in the equestrian industry is quite bad at contracts, especially when they first get into it. And especially if you feel someone is buying you a horse because they really believe in you, and maybe when not a lot of people would, but it's still important. So I'd say that's improved over the years. But I would also say, like, for the clients that I've worked with that haven't had those contracts because they came to me when I was younger, and I was so hungry for it that a similarity might be that I don't know, if someone won the X Factor, they get into a record deal that might not be the best thing for them in the long run. But you can only say that if that person makes it.
Yeah.
At the time, that record deal that doesn't make them enough money is their platform and is their way forward. So yeah, I've had horses that I've trained for free, and the costs have been covered by the client. But has that helped my business? Yes. Has that been my shop window for teaching? Yes. So I kind of reflect on that a lot, and I think that's how the longevity has stayed with a lot of my clients, because I think it's really easy to forget how much benefit people have given you. Just because your prices are this much now, when a brand new client enters the equation, doesn't mean that that previous client fobbed you off for having a good deal. But so I think it's keeping an open mind and really just appreciating people, and also not taking life too seriously. Like, it is dressage at the end of the day. On a counterpoint to it's dressage at the end of the day, I think my one biggest breakdown was, it wasn't a big breakdown, but I questioned why I was doing what I was doing when we were in lockdown, and everything was about the NHS and how amazing they are, and they are amazing. Supported or not by the government, they are amazing. But I just thought, all I do is teach people on their horses, and I can only teach people with certain privilege, because my business isn't in a place where I can do charity work and I can teach disadvantaged kids, or so I thought, well, what is the point at that moment in time? And I went to see my parents about that. And my dad, who's had a stroke 5 years ago, he just turned around, and his communication it's got a lot better, but it's still not what it was. And he just said, no, you horses, that's it. That's what you do. And
almost who you are.
Yeah. And my dad's not horsey, and for him to see the happiness and contentment it's brought me, and that for older people, I think they look at that in a younger person and go, no, that's amazing. That's what some people spend their whole life chasing, and I've got that. Like, if I went tomorrow, there's no regrets.
Are you also at a point, myself and Ash speak about this quite regularly, that we may achieve something that was once a dream of ours, something that maybe we never thought we'd achieve. For example, we spoke before the podcast about your results at the high profile. If someone told you that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you probably would have bit their arm off. Whereas now, it's like, oh, okay. You don't get that satisfaction that you would have probably had 10, 15 years ago, when it was that drive, that motivation that you once had. And that's what we found quite hard, really. We've been able to be in a position where we've worked with Hoy's, London International, two of the biggest shows in the UK. And it's been an amazing privilege for both of us to be able to say that we've been able to work alongside them. But it's like there's always the next thing that you've got to be looking for or wanting to work with, and it becomes extremely difficult because once you've done it, we've worked with London, we've worked with Hoys, it's been absolutely incredible. It's like, what's next? What's the next big thing for us? And then you can almost again fall out of love with what you're doing.
I feel my big things are, that's my junk happiness. That's my high. And I think that's important in my life, that I get that I get the thrills. And then the rest of my life is filled with contentment, that I feel fulfilled, helping my clients achieve what they want to achieve, and that I'm living a nice lifestyle, that I feel very privileged to live. So I think it's having the two for me, that I have a lovely place to go back to, and I feel very fortunate about the mundane things in my life.
Why or what in particular do you think fulfills that satisfaction in you through helping other people?
I think it's that childhood thing of always wanting to help people. I'm a people pleaser. I've had to learn a lot about that, because it comes with its own set of problems. But if you asked me how I was today and really wanted to know.
How are you today, Joe? Honestly, how are you?
At first, I would instantly go to telling you about how everyone else was around me, how what my day has been like, and I could list you off a load of facts that had happened throughout the day, and instinctively, in my head, that would lead to me finding out how I am, but I wouldn't instantly be able to go to that feeling of I'm actually feeling a bit crap. I don't understand. No, it's not. I don't understand. I don't care to understand my feelings as the first port of call. I'd rather make sure everyone else around me was happy, and then again, I'm really content being somewhere if everyone's happy, and that probably comes from really being uncomfortable being in places where people are unhappy or aggressive, and feeling very safe in the industry I'm in. I should think that's got a lot to do with it.
It comes with its own challenges, people pleasing, because you give so much of your energy for other people, you leave nothing for yourself. And I can tell there's a symbolism within that, and horses and clients and people around you, of making sure everyone's okay. But at the end of the day, who's looking after Joe?
I think that's where the balance comes into it. I can go home, have a very supportive boyfriend, and what is amazing when I go home, so Chris, my partner, he came to see me train the other day because it was on his way home from work. So he came to see me train with my trainer because we're having a barbecue afterwards. That's how I enticed him there.
Smart man. Smart man.
Yeah. And I just looked up and he was speaking to people about the dog and then texting his friends on his phone. And I think a few years ago, I'd have been like, oh no, look at me. I'm here because I need your attention. Whereas I saw him text and just speak to the people about Coco, our dog. And I thought, that's lovely. This is it. I need to know how, I know how important my job is to me, but I need someone to tell me that it is a job. Yes, it's a lifestyle, but it's great that I can go home to someone that can go, yeah, well, that's good what happened with your day, and this is what happened with mine, and just see it as a bit of it's not this incredible thing unless it's your passion. So just to normalize it a little bit, that's really helped me.
Do you think in your early stages of your journey, before you learnt those coping or understanding of your psyche side of it, that you got that justification or affirmation from the horses, and that's where that communication came, that they were actually the ones to say almost thank you for being here, and you felt good from it, and they in return, it was that transaction of silent love where it was you were there to give them what they need and they were there to give you what you needed?
I mean, I have to say it is incredible to feel that you can. So there was a horse that I used to ride because the client was finding the horse tricky, and the client wasn't just finding the horse tricky. This horse would leap 15 foot in the air with the client. I've never seen anything like it. Land and bronk.
That sounds more than tricky.
That sounds dangerous.
Yeah. Thinking about it, it was. And this lovely,
sign me up.
And this lovely lady was a good rider. Is still a good rider, and it'd be, oh no, don't worry, Joe's going to get on it. And this was back in the days of working for someone else, and it is an amazing feeling to get on a horse and just feel an adjustment you can make. So the horse doesn't feel like they have to explode, that the horse doesn't feel they have to leap 15 foot in the air, and just be able to be that slight bit ahead. And I'm not saying it always happens, but in this circumstance it did. And I'd be able to take that horse around fields, like cantering around stubble fields and things. And there was a really nice connection there. But at that time, sadly, so that horse then got investigated, as it should have, because it was very complicated for other people to ride. And he ended up having really bad wobblers and had to be put to sleep because he could have fallen over with and really hurt himself. And but at that time, that almost concerned me, how much I can get a horse to understand me and my riding, that they will choose not to do that. And I still believe that horse was making choices because of how I was addressing issues to keep me safe. So on that basis, I've had to learn, and this is changing the subject, but I've had to learn that just because I can ride a horse doesn't mean the horse should be ridden.
Right, okay, yeah.
That's a really interesting theory, isn't it?
And it's really tricky. It's been a hard lesson to learn that. And I say it to clients when I get on their horse and they go, oh, it looks fine now. I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't mean your horse is fine. It just means your horse is able to tolerate my riding more than he can tolerate your riding.
Just because you can ride a horse doesn't mean the horse
should be ridden.
Yeah. I want to say that again for emphasis, because that is actually a really quaint way of putting it. Yeah.
And I guess what's lucky about me is the reason I've got into this doesn't involve ego. So I'll never ride a horse just because I can.
Is there quite a lot of ego in riders that you see? It might not be ego, but you have to be a bit selfish to be a dressage rider. This is about you and a horse. I'm best friends with Josh Hill _official. I am.
That was
sorry.
Just unnecessary.
It was a real friendly fire there.
Don't forget the official.
Everything is a promo, Joe.
I mean, like I said before, like when people are saving lives and doing things that you could say have a lot more meaning, to do something which when it's done well should be put in the category of arts. I think you have to be a bit selfish, and sometimes that comes with ego, and sometimes that comes from maybe there's even ego in, I really want to prove that this horse is worth this this horse can do this, when we all know most of them are happy eating hay in the field.
What are you meaning by selfish in that sense?
Selfish in terms of it's our team is a select team. It's not a team sport in everyday competition. Yes, it's a team sport when you're competing for Team GB, but for the large majority, it's about them and their horse. And I guess that's what I mean.
I think that like selfishness and ego is a very fine line between self-motivated and self-driven and self-competitive. And though
and I wouldn't describe I wouldn't use selfish in a hateful way
No.
it's
to
a good,
describe
very
someone.
positive factor
I
as well.
would see that as quite positive. And I think being a people pleaser, I look at people
it's
that
the opposite
that and so that's why I would say it as a compliment. So yeah, maybe self-motivated would be better in common terms presenting that.
Do you still struggle finding moments where you have to be selfish for yourself? Is there almost like a default setting that you go back into?
Yeah. And I really been trying not to apologise this year. Full stop. And especially like when I'm booking clients in and they go, "Oh, I'm really sorry. I'm training with my own trainer that day." I'm like, hang on a minute. Even like, yes, that's self-motivating and I need to be doing that training, but even that's benefiting them in the long run.
Yeah.
If I don't go training, I'm a useless trainer. Like I'm not staying current and I'm not staying motivated. And I know I turn up for lessons going, "Oh my God, this is going to be so much better for all of my clients." When you just have that light bulb moment in your own sessions. So yeah, I think that's been my personal development has suffered.
Yeah.
And I'm getting better with that.
I can relate to you on that. I feel in like the recent months, it's been Josh has been able to help me understand why I need to put me first at certain times, because he's been really well with doing that. He's spoken really openly in previous
Amazing
episodes
what
about,
therapy can do for a man.
this is fantastic with the two of us. He will do something, I don't have to pay for it, and he becomes my licensed therapist.
This is great.
It's brilliant. 2 for 1, exactly. We've got the same idea. And it's not in a negative term. It's for example, in terms of first, second and third, I'll give the example to you. I'd be interested to hear what your initial reaction to it is you, your partner, and I don't know if you have any kids or kids planned for the future.
Coco, the dog.
Okay, we'll use Coco as the example. Who comes first from you, your partner, and Coco?
Coco.
Yeah, okay. And second?
Chris.
Yeah.
And then me.
Okay. So the answer should be you,
Yeah.
Coco,
Yeah.
and Chris.
Yeah.
It's a little bit difficult in this context, but we're going off. Coco is your child.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So for you to have the most energy for you
Yeah.
and putting you first out of every situation, because then you can be a better parent to Coco, and Chris just reaps the back end of it.
Yeah.
But also that it gives Chris the time to be able to be the best parent as well.
Yeah. So I know that, and I guess my next developmental phase is being able to say things like that out loud.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
For me, because I know I put myself first now, and I know I have good boundaries, and I can say to people, "No, I need to go home now." Like an example is I can be up at 5 a.m, go to the gym, go riding, do the yard work, go teaching, go out at 9 p.m. to see friends with Chris, and then I can be like, "Oh, everyone's having a nice time. This is good. We need to make sure everyone carries on having a nice time." And I'm like, I actually don't need to be here till 1 a.m. That makes my day too long.
Yeah.
And now I'm comfortable enough to go, I'm going home now. Have a great night. And I've always been the last at the party. And I think that's for a similar reason.
It's really funny how it always comes down to boundaries. Do you think, I've had boundaries issues, I've spoken about it quite openly. Do you think the industry itself, by the industry I mean sort of the equestrian industry, has a job to play in that you're almost overexposed, that you don't have boundaries?
Yeah. I feel I've gotten fairly far due to my lack of boundaries. And that served me well. And if I'd come in with less experience at the age of 20 and gone, yeah, I'll do this, but I want to be home by 5 p.m. I would say if that had been my boundary, then I'd have never got anywhere. But there are other boundaries, like having 1 day off a week. Like, people should be able to have 1 day off a week. I don't really care what other people say. If your 1 day off a week is going judge training or something like that, then I think that's a bit different. But if you're doing the same thing day in, day out, that would be when I need to have a boundary in place. And there's been a lot of times where that hasn't happened, and that's what I'm definitely better at now.
Over the period of your learning and education and everything you've done till now, how has this all benefited your training?
My training...
in training your clients, sorry.
Training my clients. I'd say learning things the hard way and having to learn. I think I've learned more, most people probably do, more from horses than trainers. And I found some amazing trainers that have really, really helped. But they filled in the dots that have been left by the lack of human communication. But I'd say learning primarily from horses has meant my client training is very horse focused, and so my clients can now get on their horses and go, oh, he's not as relaxed today over his back, and they can be like novice clients, but they will use that terminology because they're aware that if your horse isn't relaxed over their back, then they might be unhappy, but also you might have a really bad session, and it might be because your horse just needs physio. So I think hopefully all the training and exposure I've had means that clients can be very well-rounded and not see it as what's happening in that 45-minute session in the arena, that there are so many other factors that can go into that training session.
Yeah, there's so much to performance, because there's always, for me personally, was if a horse was naughty, the first thing that I would rule out is pain. And I've been in many environments where they would always try and kick them through, or almost to a certain extent force them through the naughtiness. And I'm just like, that's not the way I deal with it. Yes, it could be the horse being naughty, but I want to rule out X, Y, Z before I even think that you have to deal with a naughtiness problem. And unfortunately, I don't think you hear or see about that enough. From my experiences, I can say that. And I think that's when people get blinded by the money.
Yeah, I was going to say I've had to develop a business model that doesn't involve... So, for instance, my sales company is separate from my livery company, and that's separate from my training. And the main reason for that is when I went self-employed, I sold a horse and he passed the vetting and I paid the rent because I had sold the horse and he had passed the vetting, and that terrified me. I was like, what would I do to pay the rent? What would I do to pay my staff? And I never wanted the sale of a horse to be the reason that I could pay the rent, pay the bills, because then what would you do to that horse to get that result? And I didn't want to lose myself and my integrity. And so it's been it's been fairly easy for me to stay like principled in terms of, okay, that this horse is struggling, because I've always been able to pay my bills because of the teaching, and then further on because the livery company's always now started to make its own money to pay for itself, because I think yards paying for themselves that's even a rare thing. And if someone tells me how yards make money, then I'd pay them a lot of money to know that.
Just for final words to wrap it up, what would your current self, given the opportunity to speak to young Jojo, who is going through all of the issues that we've discussed over the last hour, what is the one bit of advice that he would need to hear from you?
I just think if it's going to be all right in the end, and if it's not all right, it's not the end.
Wow.
I like that. I really, really like that. Really, really like that. This, I've got a lot from this episode, Joe. Honestly, thank you so much for coming on. And I feel like a lot of people will have taken a lot away from you. And I just want to say, additionally, again, thank you for being so open. It's very difficult to come on a structure of a show like this and give a really raw and honest response. And as we sort of discussed before pressing record, the industry is very a bit stuck in its way. So,
and I would say, in terms of the industry, and I haven't even raised the points that you're trying to get at. Could the industry help people more? And I think that's because I'm a people pleaser in terms of I never want to feel like I'm not taking full responsibility. But yes, it could be more regulated. There could be better standards. I do feel the Grooms Association does a really good job, and they are doing a lot more in the industry than what was happening 20 years ago.
Yeah, small improvements.
Yeah.
All heading in the right direction.
Maybe that can be another podcast. We'll sit down and just like hit some real points of how to change the industry.
Yeah, that would be fab.
Yeah.
It's like, where can people find you if they want to use your services, social medias, all that sort of stuff?
So social media is Bright Dressage, and Instagram is Bright Dressage as well. I post fairly regularly, and then my YouTube is the same, and I'm just starting, hasn't launched yet, but just small group of tutorials for beginners if they want to go down the centre line for the first time, how they can improve on their dressage.
Nice.
So
and where can they find
soon.
that bit? Is that going to be across all the socials?
That's going to be on YouTube.
That's
so
going
there'll
to be
be
on
links
YouTube's.
on all the socials.
Lovely. Make sure you go and check that out. I'm looking forward to see how that develops and goes.
A huge thank you to all our listeners for all your support. Make sure that you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. As always, we're on Rumble, so if you can't find it on YouTube, check out Rumble. We're also available on all streaming services such as Spotify and Apple Music.
Lovely stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to Rein It In with Ash and Josh, the world's #1 equestrian podcast. And it will all be all right in the end. And if it's not all right, it's not the end. Joe, thank you for coming on, buddy, and we'll catch
Thanks
you on the
so
next
much.
one,
Thank you
please.
very much.